The court was quiet, so quiet you could hear the sound of a pen falling onto the judge's bench. All eyes in the room shifted. All cameras focusing on one woman who had waited years in the background. Meri Brown. She stood up slowly, her expression serene but unreadable, her voice shaking with a blend of fear and metal. No one had anticipated that she would address them. For years she had been the quiet one, the loyal one, the wife who smiled through humiliation and heartbreak. But today she was different. Today Meri wasn't here to defend. She was here to destroy. And the first words out of her mouth were enough to make Kody Brown's face twist in horror. "This is the truth you've all been waiting for." The courtroom gasp wasn't limited to the audience. Even Christine and Janelle traded wide-eyed glances, as though they couldn't quite believe their ears. And Robyn? Robyn's fists were clenched in her lap so hard that her knuckles turned white. She had always believed Meri was broken, that she would never strike back. And then Robyn saw it. Meri had been building her revenge in secret all along. For so long Kody ruled the narrative. On television, during interviews, even within his own household, he portrayed Meri as fragile, desperate, even pathetic. But what if that never existed? What if Meri waited patiently for just the right moment, one opportunity to finally flip the script? And that time had come. The judge leaned forward, intrigued. The attorneys shuffled their papers, not knowing what bombshell was about to drop. Kody, red-faced, glared at Meri like he could burn her to ashes with his eyes alone, but he couldn't stop her now. No one could. Meri's voice became firmer. "I remained quiet all these years because I thought it was loyalty. But what I've experienced, what I've seen, it's time the world hears it. And it begins today." It was the sort of moment that you felt in your ribcage. Tension so thick even the air seemed hazardous. Every sound of the courtroom grew sharp. Scratch of a notepad, low thrum of the fluorescent lights, shuffle of bailiffs' feet. They all knew this was no routine testimony. This was a bomb waiting to blow. And when Meri finally extracted a sealed envelope from her bag, the room held its collective breath. Within that envelope was the secret Kody never wished the world to know. A truth so incriminating it might be able to dismantle the empire he had created for decades. And for the first time in her life, Meri was the one wielding the power. But before she even opened the envelope, she looked straight at Kody. And in that instant, there was no fear in her eyes. Only flame. "You always believed I was too weak to fight back," she said, her words ringing throughout the courtroom. "But weakness is what I learned to wait for. And now, Kody, now you're going to see what silence has been concealing." The audience burst out. Whispers, gasps, murmurs too big for the judge to manage. Cameras strobed. Even the court stenographer skipped a beat, knowing history was being made right before her eyes. Kody bashed his hand on the desk, his attorney attempting to placate him. But his rage was bubbling over. And Meri? She didn't even blink. Not once. What is in Meri's envelope? Is it the secret that finally takes down Kody? For the home viewers, it was a cliffhanger they could not look away from. History of sister wives had been one of family love and loss. But this courtroom, this was different. This was betrayal. Revenge, justice, and Meri was set to rewrite all we believed we knew. So hang with me, because in the next chapter we're walking straight into the fire. Where Meri's evidence doesn't simply rock the courtroom. It rips open old wounds the family have spent years attempting to bury. But let's get going first. I want to hear from you. If you were standing in Meri's shoes, would you have kept quiet all these years? Or would you have blown everything apart earlier? Leave your comment below, because this tale is just getting started. The day of the hearing dawned thick with tension. Outside the courthouse there were reporters thronging the area, cameras popping like lightning as each Brown family member came in. There was a buzz of rumor and gossip in the air, not only from the media, but from the miniature army of fans who had queued up in hopes of getting a peek at the spectacle themselves. Kody Brown made his grand entrance first, walking across the courthouse steps with characteristic swagger. His still wild and unbraided hair rattled in the wind, but his confident smirk was etched on his face. This was his story for so many years now. The patriarch, the man in charge. This was not a trial to him. It was merely another stage, another platform upon which to stand up for his rendition of the truth. But his arrogance couldn't conceal the slight quiver in his jaw. Kody disliked courtrooms. He disliked regulations that he couldn't manipulate, judges that he couldn't charm, and evidence that he couldn't control. Nonetheless, he held his chin up high, making the cameras snap a man who appeared unmoved. Inside, Christine was already sitting. She sat facing forward, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, lips pursed into a thin line. She appeared to be strong, but now and then her foot tapped against the floor nervously. Christine understood better than anyone that today had the potential to tear open old wounds she had worked tirelessly to heal. Seated opposite her was Janelle, her face harder, colder. Unlike Christine, Janelle wasn't fidgety. She was furious. Furious with Kody. Furious over the wasted years. Furious that it had come to this. Her glare never faltered as she saw Kody walk into the courtroom. For an instant their eyes met, and neither did anything. And then there was Robyn, seated all the way at the end of the pew, holding a tissue, her chest lifting and falling in small gasps. She appeared fragile, shaken, as if the walls were shutting in on her. But beneath her weepy eyes, something else glimmered. Fear. Not fear of losing the case, but fear of what could be said in this courtroom. Things that had never been intended for the world to hear. And last, but not least, was Meri. She appeared quietly, nearly unnoticed initially. No dramatic entrances, no paparazzi in pursuit. Just a slow, measured pace. Her eyes steady, her shoulders unburdened. But to anyone who noticed, there was something different today about her. Meri was not fading away into the shadows. She was not plastering on a smile to conceal the hurt. She was serene. Too serene. Often the person in the room who is deadest silent carries the most potent truth. The judge walked in, and the courtroom became silent. All stood, the scraping of chairs against the glossy floor resonating in the quiet. Seated once more, the proceedings commenced. The attorneys rubbed their papers, the stenographer fiddled with her machine, and the bailiff stood against the wall, arms folded. Kody leaned back in his chair, stretching out his arms a little, as if the whole ordeal was a waste of his time. He looked around at the courtroom, occasionally smirking for the cameras. For him, this was all still about image, about establishing once more that he was the wronged husband, the man misunderstood. But between the wives, tension spoke another tale. Christine refused to look at him at all. Janelle's gaze was knives. Robyn's tears were already beginning to fall. And Meri simply sat there, her expression blank. The lawyers started making their opening arguments. Kody's lawyer described him as a man unfairly prejudged, a husband who had done his best for his family at all times. He spoke of sacrifice, devotion, and integrity, presenting a picture of Kody as a misunderstood leader, who bore the burden of plural marriage on his shoulders. Kody nodded in agreement, pleased. This was his tale that he wished to be shared. This was his reputation he had spent years establishing. But when the time came for the other side to speak, the tone altered. Christine's lawyer described emotional neglect, manipulation, and promises unfulfilled. Janelle's lawyer cited financial discrepancies, choices that had left the women pinching pennies, while Kody was chasing his own dreams. And although Robyn remained silent, her tear-filled eyes indicated she dreaded the time her name would be mentioned. Through it all, Meri said nothing. Her lawyer did not hasten to speak. They just sat, waiting, as if keeping their cards for a moment no one else anticipated. When someone waits this patiently, it's because the explosion will be worth it. The judge heard intently, interjecting questions, making notes. He was used to dirty cases, but this one was different. It wasn't money or estate. It was about decades of lies, about a family that had constructed an empire on TV and was dismantling it on the stand. Reporters wrote frantically, taking down every word. They could smell the storm brewing, but no one knew where it would strike. Kody tightened his tie, turning back to the crowd, with that same smirk on his face. He was convinced, really convinced, that none of the women had the guts or the evidence to ruin him. They could cry, they could whine, but eventually he would be walking out the door still in charge. But then his lawyer leaned toward him, whispering something that made the color drain slightly from Kody's face. He tried to brush it off, but his jaw tightened, his hand clenching against the desk. The whisper had been simple. Meri's going to test. Kody's head jerked in her direction. She sat quietly, hands folded, eyes on the front of the room. She did not even look at him, but he felt it. The force of something he could not control. For years, Kody had ignored her, dismissed her, publicly humiliated her. He believed Meri was too desperate, too weak for his approval to ever stand up to him. But the expression on her face said something else. It wasn't desperation. It wasn't fear. It was determination. And in that instant, for the first time, Kody experienced something he hadn't in years. A glimmer of panic. When the one you least expect to fight back starts to fight, it's already too late to stop them. The judge ordered a short recess so the attorneys could prepare before testimony could start. People milled about and chattered as they stood up, stretched, and muttered about what could be next. Christine leaned toward Janelle, whispering something that made both women's eyes widen. Robyn dabbed her eyes with her tissue, rocking slightly in her chair as if bracing for impact. Kody paced, unable to sit still, his confidence slipping with every step. And Meri, she just stood, walked to the window, and stared out at the horde of reporters down below. Her reflection in the mirror was calm, solid. She had waited for years to get to this place, and now she wasn't about to squander it. The bailiff called that the recess was over. They all sat down. The judge cleared his throat, about to call the first witness. Kody stood his tie straight again, pushing the grin back onto his face. He attempted to reassure himself that he was still in control, but he knew better. This was no longer his platform. And when Meri did stand to approach the witness stand at last, the whole room leaned in, gasping, eager to hear the words that could destroy everything. Each step that she made seemed to resonate throughout the room, louder than it ought to have been, as if the sound of inevitability was following her. The bailiff did his part, and swore her in, and Meri lifted her right hand without hesitation. She replied firmly when asked, "I do." Kody fidgeted in his chair, adjusting his collar. To the cameras he smiled weakly, but his eyes gave him away. There was fear lurking within them. Not a lot, not overt, but enough that those who knew him could see. Meri settled into her seat, her hands clasped in her lap, and stared directly at the judge. Not at Kody, not at the crowd, not even at her lawyer. Directly in front of her, as if she were gazing down the truth itself. "Mrs. Brown," the attorney started, his voice soothing, respectful. "May I have you explain to the court why you are present here today?" Meri drew in a slow breath. Her eyes flickered briefly toward the gallery, then back to the judge. "Because I can't be silent anymore. For too long I've lived with lies, manipulation and humiliation. Today I want the truth to be heard." The room grew still, as if the very air froze. Kody laughed out loud. Too hard, too tense. "Oh break. This is just Meri playing victim again." The judge rapped his gavel on the table. "Mr. Brown, you will be quiet until it's your turn to talk." Kody gritted his jaw, his knuckles white as he rested them on the table. Meri didn't even look at him. The most powerful form of revenge can be not looking at the person who has harmed you. Meri went on, her tone firmer now. "I was with this family more than 30 years. I was here at the beginning, when we were creating something that was meant to be about faith and love. But backstage, behind the fake smiles, there was another side of Kody. No one knew." The lawyer leaned in. "And what side was that, Meri?" She paused, her throat constricted. Then in a dam-breaking rush, the words were out. "Control, anger, manipulation. He controlled where we lived, how much we spent, even who was most important in the family. And when we disobeyed him, he punished us. Not with his fists, but with silence, with rejection, with humiliation." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Christine lowered her head, nodding ever so slightly, as if Meri's words were finally putting voice to her own pain. Janelle's lips pressed into a hard line, her jaw tense. And Robyn's eyes darted nervously to Kody, then back to Meri, as though she was watching her entire foundation crumble. Kody hunched forward, sneering. "Oh please Meri, if it was so bad, why did you stay all these years?" Meri glanced away, eventually meeting his gaze for the first time. Her eyes flamed. "Because you made me think I was nothing without you. That's what you do well, Kody. Make people think they don't have a choice. For a moment, Kody had nothing to say. His lips parted, then dropped shut. The courtroom buzzed. Reporters writing furiously. Cameras shuddering in bursts. The silence of a bully is the first indication they know the truth has them cornered. The lawyer ushered her forward. Meri, you used the word humiliation earlier. Can you provide an example to the court? Her expression clenched, but she agreed. There was the time he said to the kids on television that I was a mistake, that my marriage to him was an obligation he regretted. Do you know what it's like? Sitting beside the man you devoted your life to, listening to him say you're a mistake in front of the entire world, and then, smiling through it because that was what the family demanded. Her voice broke, but she continued. And when I fought back for respect, he cut it off. Affection, time, even eye contact. He closed me out like I didn't exist. Robyn's tissue trembled in her hand. She wiped at her eyes, though no one would ever know if her tears were for Meri or for herself. Kody slammed his palm on the desk, unable to hold back. That's not how it happened. She's twisting. Enough, Mr. Brown. The judge snapped. You'll have your chance to speak. Sit down. The gallery buzzed louder now. Even the court officers exchanged glances, as though they knew this was no ordinary testimony. Meri took a deep breath and steadied herself. She let her gaze drift to Christine and Janelle. For the first time, I thought I was all alone with this. But I wasn't, was I? Christine swallowed hard, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Janelle nodded the slightest amount, a wordless gesture of unity. That instant of solidarity, however brief, clung to the air like a candle flame. Often the worst danger isn't the truth you speak about yourself. It's the truth others silently agree with. The lawyer inched forward. Meri, I need to ask, you showed up today with something in your possession. Something sealed. The room erupted into gasps. Even Kody's head snapped up, his face burning. Meri slowly patted her bag. The envelope. She laid it in front of her on the table. She didn't open it, not yet. Rather, she left it there on the table, like a bomb waiting to blow. The whole room holding its breath for it to explode. Her lawyer's tone dropped. Without us knowing what is in here, can you tell us why you brought it? Meri's gaze didn't waver. Because proof matters. Because words aren't enough when you've spent your whole life being told you're lying. What's in here? It's not just my story. It's Kody's. The part he never wanted the world to see. The courtroom erupted in whispers. The judge ordered silence. But the tension was too much. Kody stood suddenly, his chair screeching back. Your Honor, this is a stunt. She's just trying to humiliate me. That envelope is nothing but lies. And sit down, Mr. Brown. The judge thundered, gavel pounding. But Meri's eyes never left Kody's. She didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. She just stared at him with the calm fury of a woman who had waited too long to be heard. And then, quietly, almost a whisper spoken only for him, she spoke, you know full well what's inside. And you know it's sufficient. Kody's face went white. For the first time in 40 years, he seemed small. The judge leaned forward, putting on his glasses. Mrs. Brown, are you ready to present that envelope as evidence? Meri placed her hand lightly on the paper. She didn't advance it, didn't press it forward. Not yet. She merely spoke. When the time is right. The judge frowned, curious but willing to wait. Very well. Proceed with your testimony. Meri leaned back, her hand remaining on the envelope as if it were alive. She took a deep breath, getting herself composed. What I have to tell you next is about the night that everything changed. The crowd fell quiet once more. Cameras zoomed. Even Christine and Janelle leaned forward. And Kody? He stiffened. His eyes flashed nervously, his foot tapping incessantly against the floor. He knew exactly which night she was about to refer to. The experience Meri was about to share wasn't a memory at all. It was the secret that Kody had spent years trying to hide. The courtroom was so quiet that even the hum of the overhead lights seemed deafening. Meri's hand rested firmly on the envelope, her knuckles pale, her eyes locked forward. She cleared her throat, her voice low but even. That night I am referring to was the night I knew my marriage to Kody was finished. Not because I had decided that, but because he made it happen. And I have carried the burden of that night ever since. Kody's head fell into his hand, fingers digging into his temple. He spoke to his lawyer, but too softly to be understood. Nevertheless, his body language was revealing. He knew what this was leading to. "Tell us about that night," her attorney coaxed softly. Meri's eyes grew black, her breathing stalling for an instant before she took it up again. "It was late. The cameras were off. The kids were in bed. I had asked Kody if we could please talk, truly talk about what was going on between us. I was at my wit's end. I needed to know if I was still a part of his life." Her voice broke a little, but she continued. "He told me I was nothing to him, and I should be thankful he hadn't left yet, that I was embarrassing him. Embarrassing the family." Gasps erupted in the audience. Christine had her head down, tears flowing freely. "Now," Janelle shook her head back and forth, her arms crossed tightly against her body, as if holding on to what was left of herself. Meri's lips quivered, but she didn't break. "And then he said the words that I will never ever forget. He told me, 'You are just a placeholder, Meri. You were my first wife, but you're not my real partner anymore.'" The room burst into chaos. Journalists writing frantically, whispers increasing to a din. Before the judge slammed his gavel, Kody leaped to his feet, fingers shaking and pointing at her. "You're distorting it. That's not what I said." Meri's gaze cut to him like a knife. "Perhaps not verbatim, but you intended it, and we both know that. When the truth finally comes to light, the liar always screams the loudest." The judge motioned for Kody to sit down, his own patience wearing thin. Kody sat, though his chest expanded and fell in hard, seething breaths. His lawyer rested a hand on his shoulder, mouthing something soothing, but his scowl remained trained on Meri. The attorney went on. "Meri, did anyone else know about this conversation?" She nodded slowly. "Not then, not at first, but later, I told Christine." Christine's eyes widened, as if the spotlight had suddenly turned toward her. Meri smiled gently, sadly. "You remember, don't you?" Christine nodded, her lips quivering. "I remember. You called me crying. You said you felt invisible, that he told you you didn't matter anymore." Tears flowed unimpeded now down Christine's face. The courtroom was stunned to silence, the confirmation hanging heavily in the air. Robyn shifted restlessly, her tissue so tight in her hand that it might rip. She glanced from Meri to Kody, her lips pursed thin, her body shaking. The lawyer leaned forward. "Meri, why now, after all these years?" Meri's voice grew stronger. "Because I'm tired of being painted as weak. I'm tired of him rewriting our history, making me look pathetic while he walks around like some hero. That night broke me, but it also woke me up. And I've spent years putting the pieces together, not just of myself, but of the truth he's been hiding." The envelope rested between her and the lawyer, heavy with foreboding. The judge looked at it, then at her, obviously calculating how far she would push. The longer the envelope remained closed, the more perilous it was. Kody could no longer contain himself. He leaned in, his voice cracking with urgency, his tone acidic. "What's in that envelope, Meri? Huh? You think you can just wave it around like some kind of weapon? If you had anything substantial, you'd already have produced it." The judge gave him a dirty look, but let him get away with this time. Everyone was staring at Meri, and for the first time, a faint smile played on her lips. Not smug, not cruel, but knowing. "You'll see soon enough," she murmured. The tension was almost unbearable. Even the bailiff, the usual statue in the corner, shifted a fraction, his gaze sharpening on the scene. The attorney went on cautiously. "Meri, you've reported emotional neglect and manipulation. Is there something else you'd like to say to us before we consider the envelope?" Meri nodded. "Yes, because what Kody did to me, he did to all of us, but differently. He made us compete for his attention, his approval. He turned us against each other like pawns in this sick game. And the whole time, he lied to the cameras about it being about love, about faith. But it was never about that. It was about control." Christine hid her face in her hands and wept in silence. Janelle's jaw turned white with rage, her body trembling with barely suppressed anger. Robyn, ghost white, sat immobile, her lips opening as if she longed to say something, but couldn't. Kody shook his head wildly, his voice increasing. You're lying. All of you are lying. You wanted me to be the bad guy, and now you're turning everything we experienced. His words stumbled when he caught Meri's level gaze still locked on him. No fear, no hatred, only truth. A man who is afraid of being uncovered will always mix up truth with treachery. The judge slammed his gavel once more. Order in the court. Lastly, Meri's lawyer spoke to the envelope in so many words. Mrs. Brown, the court can't guess forever. If you are ready to disclose what's in there, then this is the time to do it. The room fell silent. All of the cameras zoomed in. Reporters leaned forward so far their pens quivered in mid-air. Even the judge shifted his glasses, his eyes squinting with interest. Meri placed her fingertips on the edge of the flap on the envelope. Her breathing came fast. She gazed down at it, then again at the judge. Done, she murmured. But not today, because before I open this, I want to get through the rest of the story. The envelope is evidence. But the story is what makes it count. The audience moaned, grasping, exasperated. But the judge nodded slowly, comprehending her tactics. Very well, Mrs. Brown. Proceed. Meri folded her hands again, sitting back. That night wasn't the first time that Kody showed us who he really was. There were others. Nights that the cameras were not on. Nights that he thought no one would ever know. But I knew. And now, so will everyone else. She turned to look at Kody again. His face was ashen, sweat beading along his temple, his smirk erased. He was trapped, cornered, like an animal that had finally realized the door to the cage had slammed shut. And for the first time in decades, the courtroom witnessed it. Kody Brown was scared. But fear is just the beginning. The real explosion comes when the secrets finally break free. The tension in the courtroom was suffocating, thick enough to choke on. Everyone leaned forward, waiting for Meri to continue. Her hands rested calmly on the stand now, her voice steady, but her eyes burned with years of swallowed pain. You want to know what Kody's really like? She started, her voice cutting. It's not what you saw on television. It's not the smiling dad, the charming husband speaking about spirituality and cohesion. Behind closed doors, it was quite another story, and I was there to witness it. Kody shifted uncomfortably, muttering under his breath. His lawyer leaned toward him, whispering urgently, but Kody shook him off. His glare fixed on Meri. She took a breath. Some nights he would come storming into my bedroom, angry about something silly. How I'd talked to Robyn, how I'd decorated the house, even how long I'd spent on the phone with my own child. He'd call me selfish and disloyal, and unworthy. And when I'd try to explain, he'd say I was playing the victim. The courtroom moved. A few people in the audience gasped softly. Christine's head dropped further, her face contorting as the memories fully surfaced. Janelle's arms crossed harder over her body, her jaw firm in a silent battle against her own fury. Meri's eyes welled up, but she kept her cool. I thought, if I just tried harder, if I gave more, he would love me again. But it never worked, because he didn't want a partner. He wanted control. And when I stopped bending to his will, that's when the cruelty sharpened. Her words pierced the air like knives. Kody slapped his hand on the table. You are distorting this. You're enough. The judge snapped, gavel thudding once. Mr. Brown, if you can't keep yourself in line, you will be escorted out. Kody's chest rose and fell as he leaned back down, his face flushed, sweat dripping on his forehead. When a man dreads exposure, silence is a choking. Meri faced Christine, her tone gentling. Christine, you understand the pattern. You lived it too. Do you remember the night I called you? The night you told me you were ready to leave him for good? Christine's eyes welled up, her lips quivering. She nodded slowly. I remember saying I couldn't do it anymore, that I felt like he hated me. And you said that you understood, because he treated you the same way. Meri smiled sadly at her. We were sisters in suffering, weren't we? Christine broke down then, her sobs muffled against her hand. Reporters scribbled furiously, capturing every tear, every word. Janelle, normally the quiet one, burst out. She shook with fear, but was steely strong. I kept silent for too long. But Meri's right. He pitted us against one another, made us fight for mere crumbs of love. And when we could not fulfill his impossible expectations, he made us feel like nothing. That's not leadership. That's manipulation. The courtroom burst out again, whispers rushing through the air like a storm. The judge slammed his gavel, but this time he didn't shut Janelle up. He allowed her words to stand. Kody spun around to her, his face contorted in shock. You? Janelle? Of all people, I trusted you. But Janelle didn't blink. Her gaze remained fixed on Meri, as if years of silence had at last broken free. The strongest silence always cracks the loudest. When truth finally bursts through. Robyn, trembling, finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. This isn't fair. All eyes snapped toward her. She clutched her tissue, her face pale, her lip quivering. You don't understand. Kody's not perfect. But he's not this monster you're painting him as. He tried to hold everything together. He tried, Meri's eyes sliced to her, hard but not unforgiving. He tried to keep you together, Robyn, at the expense of all of us. Robyn winced, her eyes skittering down. Tears flowed freely now. But she didn't protest. Kody glared at her. Betrayed. Robyn, don't you dare take their side. But Robyn said nothing. She continued staring at her shaking hands. Meri leaned in. This is not about hurt feelings. This is about truth. And if truth hurts you, Kody, that's on you, not us. The attorney pointed to the envelope. And the evidence you bear, is it related to these tales? Meri nodded slowly. Yes, it's only the beginning. That envelope holds evidence, messages, recordings, things Kody never imagined would ever see the light of day. Evidence that what he said and did behind closed doors doesn't exactly square with the man he presented to the world. The courtroom hummed like a hive, the tension almost too much to bear. Kody stumbled forward, his voice pleading now. You wouldn't do that. You would try to bring me down through lies and rumors? You expect people to believe you. Meri rested her head back in her hand, her voice smooth, with an almost icy tone. It isn't about trusting me anymore. It's about trusting the facts. The room was silent again, the envelope radiating like a warning sign of devastation on the table. Meri's voice lowered almost to a whisper, but each word hit like a hammer. In this envelope is enough to tell the end of the story Kody has been peddling the world for years. And when I open it, it won't only ruin his reputation, it could very well ruin his freedom. The gallery gasped so loudly that it was like thunder. Reporters almost slipped out of their chairs. The judge's eyes went wide, his gavel trembling in mid-air. Kody's bravado faded, and he paled, looking for the first time utterly terrified. Robyn covered her mouth, a stifled sob escaping. Christine grasped the edge of the bench, as if to steady herself. Janelle closed her eyes, her chest heaving with big breaths. And Meri? She settled back in her chair, serene as ever, her fingers caressing the envelope lightly. Sometimes the most terrifying weapon isn't so much the truth itself, it's the instant just before it blows. The judge leaned forward, his voice low but unyielding. Mrs. Brown, are you telling me that what you have is criminal evidence? Meri's eyes flicked to Kody, holding his gaze. I'm saying when this envelope opens, the world will see Kody Brown for who he really is. And then it won't just be this courtroom he'll have to answer to. The room went dead silent, the cliffhanger vibrating in the air like the moment before a storm breaks. The judge's voice sliced through the suffocating silence. Mrs. Brown, speculation can't go on in the court. If you do have evidence, you must produce it. Open the envelope. The words hung heavy in the air. Cameras clicked, pens scratched on notepads, and the entire courtroom held its breath. Meri gazed at the envelope. Her hands did not shake. She had waited for years to see this moment. Slowly she pressed her finger under the flap and ripped it open. The noise was thunderous. Kody jerked forward in his chair, his face twisted in alarm. Judge, this is an outrage. She has no business. Sit down, Mr. Brown, the judge snapped, or I'll hold you in contempt. Kody sank back, but his eyes remained fixed on Meri's hands. She drew out the first document, a packet of printed emails and texts, tied together neatly. She held them aloft. These are duplicates of exchanges between Kody and me, years worth. Exchanges in which he made promises, swore he loved me, then used those promises to control and belittle me. He always threatened me that if I ever left him, if I ever exposed him, he'd destroy me. But guess what, Kody? Her voice turned cold. You don't get to destroy me anymore. She handed the papers to the bailiff, who took them to the judge. The judge read the first page, his eyebrows shooting up. Then he started reading out loud. Meri, you are nothing without me. Don't forget that. If you ever try to turn the others against me, I will make sure you regret it. A stunned gasp swept around the courtroom. Christine covered her lips, shaking her head. Janelle's lips pursed, her anger evident in silence. Robyn looked on wide-eyed at the floor, knuckles white as she clutched her tissue. The judge moved to another page. I don't care how lonely you are. Your responsibility is to remain loyal, to smile, and to maintain the image of the family. If you cannot do that, then you're weak, and weakness has no room in my family. Meri's lips compressing, her voice cracking. He said that to me the evening I begged him to spend an evening with me. He informed me that my loneliness was my own doing, that if I needed love I'd have to earn it by being a better servant to him. The courtroom hummed now, reporters almost tripping over each other to write more quickly. Christine erupted suddenly, her voice shaking but strong. I remember that night. You called me crying. You didn't even sound like yourself. And I told you to be strong. But I had no idea. He said this. Meri nodded softly. He didn't just shatter me. He shattered all of us, piece by piece. Kody leapt up once more, veins throbbing in his neck. Those messages are out of context. You don't know. The judge struck the gavel. Sit down, Mr. Brown, or I will have you removed. Kody slunk back into his chair, seething, muttering oaths under his breath. Meri reached again into the envelope. That was only the beginning, she said. There is more. She produced a flash drive, wrapped in a small plastic bag. The courtroom came to a standstill. These recordings, Meri told him, her tone slicing like a knife, have private conversations. Conversations Kody never believed anyone would ever hear. Conversations where he speaks of us, his children, his wives, not as human beings, but as possessions. Something he could manipulate, something he could dispose of. The bailiff removed the drive, inserting it into the court system. A big speaker emitted a loud static. Kody's voice echoed in the room. Recorded, irrefutable. Meri's done. She's dead weight. Christine's emotional, easy to manipulate. Janelle, she'll never leave. She's too practical. And Robyn is the only one worth keeping around. She's the only one who makes me look good. The words echoed like a gunshot. Gasps burst forth from all around. Christine was crying outright now. Janelle sat stiff, tears scalding in her eyes, her fists so tightly clenched that her knuckles whitened. Robyn's face contorted as she hid her face in her hands. Kody sprang out of his chair, frantic. That was private. That wasn't supposed. Meri's eyes seared into him. Exactly. It was not intended for us to hear. But this is what you are when no one sees. The judge waved for quiet, but the courtroom erupted into chaos. Reporters yelled into microphones. Spectators hissed angrily. Even the jury stared in shock. Robyn finally raised her head, tears streaming down her face. Kody, you actually said that. About me. About them. Kody's face contorted. Robyn, don't listen. That was strategy. You know I didn't mean it like that. But Robyn shook her head, turned away, her sobs soft but persistent. Meri wasn't done. She dipped back into the envelope and pulled out a last paper, folded tightly. She held it gently, almost with awe. This, she whispered, is the worst. The one that I kept secret because I was scared. Scared it would ruin everything. But perhaps that is what must happen. She passed it to the bailiff, who handed it to the judge. He spread it out slowly, his face growing stern as he read. Then his voice boomed out, each syllable cutting. If anyone ever exposes me, I'll deny everything. I'll drag them through court until they're bankrupt. And if they think they can prove anything, well, good luck. I've got friends who know how to make problems disappear. The room went dead silent. The implication was clear. This wasn't just emotional cruelty. It was a threat, a veiled suggestion of power, of influence, of intimidation. Christine gasped, holding onto her chest. Janelle whispered under her breath. Oh my God. Robyn sat stiff, white as death. And Kody, his mask broke. He stood, crazed-eyed, his voice breaking into despair. That's not what it means. You're twisting it. I never. But nobody believed him anymore. Meri straightened forward, her voice firm, authoritative. For years you ruled us through fear. But fear is only as good as the moment that it starts to lose its power. And I'm tired of being afraid of you, Kody. She put the empty envelope down on the table. And don't for a second think that this is all there is. What you've witnessed here today, it's just the tip. The rest is still in wait. The courtroom hummed with hysteria, whispers, screams, tears. But amidst the chaos sat Meri, serene and determined, as if she had gained back every shard of herself Kody had attempted to claim. The judge cleared his throat, his voice somber. This court will recess until tomorrow. At that time, we will decide how to continue with this evidence. The gavel came down. The courtroom exploded. Kody collapsed into his chair, his bravado gone. Christine and Janelle hugged each other, their sisterhood remade in suffering and honesty. Robyn sat alone, shattered, her tears soaking the tissue clutched in her hand. And Meri, she stepped out of the stand, head held high. For the first time in decades, she didn't appear small. She didn't appear broken. She appeared triumphant. Revenge isn't always loud. Revenge is sometimes the confident knowledge that the truth, when released, can never again be imprisoned. The noise outside the courthouse was cacophonous. The moment the gavel came down, recess, reporters rushed for the doors, phones held aloft, cameras streaming live. When Meri emerged from the courthouse doors, a wave of microphones burst forward. Meri, why now? Meri, what's in the envelope besides that? Do you think Kody's dangerous? She stopped at the top of the courthouse stairs, sunlight pouring over her face. For once, she did not flinch from the attention. She gazed straight into the cameras, her voice steady but resolute. I stood up today because silence only serves to protect the abuser. I was quiet too long. I will not be quiet any longer. The audience burst into a tangle of yelled questions. Meri didn't respond to another one. She just descended the steps with subdued dignity, each blinding flash of the cameras lighting the steel of her face. Then Kody showed up. His hair was mussed, his face flushed with red, his hair standing on end from pulling his hands through it. He pushed through cameras, pointing his finger at the journalists. This is all lies, he yelled, his voice breaking. Meri is resentful. She's vengeful. She's attempting to ruin me because she was unable to hold on to me. You people don't know the truth. But the harder he yelled, the more incriminating it appeared. Clips of his tantrum were live-streamed on every channel in a matter of minutes. Christine and Janelle sneaked out a side door, escaping the melee. They didn't want to be a part of Kody's spectacle. They ducked down a block to a quiet bench, their hearts still racing. Christine spoke first, breaking the silence. Janelle, did you ever imagine we'd hear him utter those words? About us? About the children? Janelle let out a slow breath, shaking her head. I knew he believed them. Inside I always knew. But hearing it, out loud, it's like having a knife in the chest. Christine wiped away tears. And Meri, God. For so long we thought she was just hanging on to him. That she didn't mind what he did. But she was holding all of this entire weight. Janelle's tone grew cold. She survived. And now she's fighting back at last. Christine, do you have any idea what she's done for us? She didn't just expose him. She gave us our voices back. They sat in quiet for a very long time, observing strangers swipe through their phones while Kody's taped words went viral. At the courthouse, Robyn stuck around inside, her hands shaking around a balled-up tissue. Her mascara streamed down her face, but she didn't even bother. She could still hear Kody's voice in her head, the recording of him saying that he wanted to keep only the one. It was meant to be a compliment. Rather, it tasted like venom. She thought she was the favorite through all these years because of love, because of something special between them. She realized now it was strategy, manipulation. He'd objectified her, just like he objectified Meri, Christine, and Janelle, into an asset, a commodity. Her chest constricted. She couldn't catch her breath. Robyn staggered out of the courthouse, dodging cameras. She didn't want the world to witness this. She ducked into a peaceful alley and collapsed against the building, her tears bouncing off the bricks. If he lied about them, did he lie about me as well? The question consumed her, threatening to unravel everything. That night, headlines lit up every channel. Brown family shocker. Kody humiliated in courtroom scandal. Secret recordings reveal sister wives' patriarch's cruel remarks. Meri Brown. I'm done being afraid. Clips of the courtroom evidence spread across TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. The audio of Kody saying Meri's dead weight, Christine's emotional, easy to manipulate, was replayed millions of times, dissected by commentators, mocked by comedians, and raged over by fans who once adored the family. Even mainstream outlets picked it up. A morning chat show panel weighed the case. He steadily demeaned these women over several years. One host replied, shaking her head, and that he warned them of financial and legal devastation if they ever spoke was chilling. Another chimed in. The public opinion was shifting, fast, hard, and brutally. At home with Kody, meanwhile, pandemonium ruled. He stormed from room to room, phone clutched against his ear, dialing lawyers, publicists, anyone who picked up. They can't do this to me. Those were private tapes. That was entrapment. You tell them I'm going to sue every one of the outlets that airs it. None of the people on the other end seemed able to talk him down. He slammed the phone down and started pacing, muttering like a madman. Meri believes she's smart. She believes she's won. But she has no idea what I've got. She has no idea I can still. His sentence ended in gibbering rage. He swept up a glass from the counter and smashed it against the wall, observing as it exploded into sharp shards. Robyn sat in the corner of the room, speechless. Her face was ashen, her eyes red from tears. Kody, she breathed, her words so soft. You said those words. They heard it. The world heard it. How do we recover from this? Kody spun around, his face lit with fury. We don't recover, Robyn. We fight. I won't let her take everything from me. I'll set this entire thing ablaze before I let her win. His voice was loose now, wild, and for the first time in years, Robyn was scared of him, not of losing him. Scared of what he could do. In another place, Meri sat still in her house, her envelope now bare, flat on the table. But next to it sat a second envelope, open, unbroken. She ran her fingers across its sealed rim. The world believed that she had told all, but she hadn't. What they witnessed in court today, that was merely the first blow. The second blow, the true bombshell, remained in wait. And when it fell, it would not only wreck Kody's reputation, it would annihilate the final illusion that he ever loved any one of them at all. Meri reclined, her eyes closed. For the first time in 4 decades, she felt the still satisfaction of being in command. The war wasn't finished. But today, she wasn't the one on the battlefield bleeding. This time, it was Kody's turn. The courtroom was more oppressive when they resumed the next morning. The tension crackled in the air. Reporters occupied every seat, pens at the ready, cameras charging. Social media personalities had waited outside since dawn, hoping to capture the newest drip of scandal. Kody sauntered in, chin held high, his designer suit crisply pressed. But under the finished facade, sweat dripped from his temples. He grinned stiffly, his eyes roving across the room, as if challenging anyone to catch his eye. Meri was already sitting. She didn't glance at him. She placed one manila envelope on the table in front of her, centrally positioned, as if that were the only thing that counted. Kody caught it. His jaw clenched. The judge appeared, and everyone stood. The whispers cut off immediately. Court is back in session. The judge declared sternly. The court has been notified that the witness, Mrs. Meri Brown, wishes to present further evidence. Everyone watched Meri. Slowly and deliberately, she pushed the envelope across to the clerk. Yes, Your Honor. I think this evidence will help explain the entire truth of Mr. Brown's actions and motives. Kody shot to his feet. Objection! This is harassment. She's ambushing me with. The judge's gavel slammed. Sit down, Mr. Brown. You'll have your chance to respond. Kody sank back into his chair, his face flushing with fury. The clerk handed the judge a small USB drive, freshly pulled from the envelope. The judge glanced at Meri. This is another recording? Meri nodded. Yes, Your Honor, one I've held back until now. The judge raised an eyebrow, then motioned to the bailiff. Play the recording. The courtroom fell silent. The speakers crackled to life. Then Kody's voice. Do you think that these children are important? They aren't. They're currency. They make the wives compliant. Do you think I care about their small issues? Depression? Money trouble? School problems? That's background noise. They're pieces in the grand game. The family brand, that's what it comes down to. Without the children, we have no show. Without the show, we have no influence. A gasp went through the courtroom. Christine's hand shot to her mouth, her face pale. Janelle gripped the edge of the bench, her knuckles white, but the tape wasn't over. Kody's voice sounded dripping with contempt. Do you have any idea how pathetic it is? Hearing them whine that I'm not there? I don't have to be there. I supply the name, the status. That's sufficient. They don't like it. Well, that's their problem. They'll be thanking me later when the checks come through. Christine rose to her feet, tears running down her face. That's about my kids, she whispered. That's about our kids. Janelle shook her head, stunned. He used them. He used all of us. Robyn sat there motionless, her skin draining of color. For years she'd held on to the expectation that Kody loved her children differently, genuinely. But now, listening to his words say it to cold, calculating, cruel sit broke her final illusion. The recording stopped. The silence was crushing, even the judge appeared shaken. He leaned forward, his eyes fixed furiously on Kody. Mr. Brown, did you say those words? Kody struggled, growing louder in desperation. That tape is faked. It's edited, doctored. This is all part of Meri's grudge. She's lying in order to discredit me. But his denials rang thin, desperate. Christine stood up from the gallery, her voice shaking but clear. No, that's him. That's the way he speaks when nobody is going to listen. That's the man we lived with. Janelle stood up next to her. I have heard him speak like this for years. He believes that we are too scared to say it back. No longer. Even Robyn whispered, near whispering to herself. I've heard it too. Her voice cracked. I just didn't want to believe. The courtroom burst into whispers, reporters writing frantically, cameras flashing in rapid succession. Kody's mask slid all the way off. He banged his fists on the table, shouting randomly, You're all against me. You want to destroy me because I'm a man who built something great. You're jealous. All of you. The judge slammed the gavel repeatedly. Order. Order. But Kody wasn't done yet. He turned on Meri, his face distorted with anger. You think you've won? You think people will even remember you? You're nothing without me. Nothing. Meri didn't blink. She looked at him, her voice soft but firm. Perhaps, but at least I'm free. And you'll never be. The judge sat back in his chair, inspecting Kody as if a man inspecting a tower on the verge of collapse. This court has heard enough for one day. We will recess until tomorrow to consider the admissibility of this new testimony. But let me make one thing clear. Mr. Brown, the credibility of your testimony is highly suspect. The gavel came down again. Court adjourned. Outside, it was pandemonium. Journalists yelled at each other, microphones jutting in every which way. Christine, what do you have to say about Kody calling your children pawns? Janelle, will you be called to testify later? Meri, what are you going to do next? Christine wept uncontrollably, her tears flowing freely as she stated, He doesn't get to use our kids anymore. Not now. Not ever. Janelle took her hand, shaking her head fiercely. Meri strode by the commotion in silence, her silence more audible than any soundbite. Kody stormed out, his bodyguards pushing cameras out of the way. But it was too late. Videos of his tirade inside the courtroom were already trending globally. Hashtags detonated. #Kody exposed. #Meri wins. #protect. The kids that evening, in the stillness of her home, Meri sat alone. The second envelope was open on her table, empty now. She gazed at it for hours and then grabbed her journal. She scribbled down one sentence, twice underlining it. He took my voice for 30 years. Today, I took it back. She shut the journal, her heart firm. For the first time in decades, Meri felt she wasn't stuck in Kody's shadow. For the first time, she felt strong. And she knew tomorrow would be the day everything came crashing down for him. The world wouldn't simply observe the cracks any longer. They would witness the empire crumble. When the court reconvened the following day, the atmosphere in the room was charged. The gallery was full. Reporters, fans, legal commentators, all knew they were on the verge of witnessing the highlight of an affair that had escalated beyond reality TV. Kody came in late. His shoulders slumped, his swagger deflated. His hair, once meticulously groomed, was disheveled, as if he'd slept in it. He refused eye contact with the audience, grumbling angrily to himself as he sank into his seat. Meri sat poised, unruffled, wearing a black suit that portrayed her as authoritative. She didn't resemble the timid wife whom the world had once sympathized with. She resembled someone who had already triumphed. The judge appeared, and there was a silence. "We are here today to address the admissibility of the evidence submitted by Mrs. Brown. After careful review of both recordings, this court finds them to be authentic and admissible. They will remain part of the official record." The words hit Kody like a blow. He lurched forward. "You can't? That's not fair. You don't understand." The gavel came down. "Mr. Brown, that's enough. Your credibility has been irreparably harmed by your own testimony. This court is not here to oblige your fits." A shudder of gasps and murmurs ran through the room. Christine, who sat in the gallery, shared a look with Janelle. They both looked grateful, but also horribly hurt. It wasn't about winning anymore. It was about the world finally getting a glimpse behind the wizard's curtain. The judge leaned forward. "Before we proceed towards closing statements, I will permit each concerned party a short statement if they desire." Christine rose. Her voice trembled, yet words held strength. "For years I tried to make this family work. I gave everything and so did my kids. And what we got back was manipulation, neglect and lies. My children deserved a father. Instead, they got a man who saw them as leverage. I stand here today to say, no more." She sat down, tears glistening in her eyes. Janelle rose next, calm, measured. "I stayed longer than I should have, because I believed in the dream we all built. I thought if I sacrificed enough, if I stayed strong enough, maybe it would mean something. But what I see now is that the dream was never for us. It was always for him. We were props in a story he wanted to sell. Well, I'm done being a prop. We all are." The room broke into soft applause before the judge silenced it. Then, slowly, Robyn stood. The gallery leaned forward. No one knew what she would say. Her hands shook when she spoke. "I stood up for him. I trusted him. I wanted to trust that what we shared was different, that my children counted with him in some way the others didn't. But after hearing that tape," her voice cracked, tears streaming down her face. "He didn't just betray them. He betrayed me as well. And I can no longer stand up for him." The words fell like knives. Kody turned around to her, his eyes bulging. "Robyn, no. Don't you dare. Everything I gave you, everything I gave up." But Robyn simply shook her head, slumping back in her chair. The room was uncomfortably quiet. Finally it was Meri's time. She stood, her shoulders straight, her eyes fixed on the judge. "Your Honor, I don't have to reiterate what the recordings already established. Everyone has heard his words. Everyone has seen who he actually is. For 30 years I was silent. I was ignored, manipulated and treated like nothing. But today, I am not silent. Today, I am heard. And I stand here not just for myself, but for every wife who has ever been told her voice doesn't count. For every child who has ever been treated like a pawn. This ends now." She sat down. The silence that followed was so total, it was well nigh sacred. Kody's face contorted. Anger, shame, fear, all collapsing into each other. He stood, shaking his head wildly. "You can't do this to me. I am this family. I built this. Without me, none of you would even exist as you are. I made you." Ice words trailed off. His chest rose and fell. For the first time he was small. Then his voice broke into a desperate whisper. "Please don't leave me like this." There was no response. Not Christine. Not Janelle. Not Robyn. And most definitely not Meri. The judge slammed the gavel. "Court will recess. There will be a ruling on the division of property and custody to follow. But in the eyes of this court, the truth has been revealed. This session is adjourned." The gavel came down one final time. Kody slumped back in his chair, eyes fixed on the floor. Alone. Outside, the steps of the courthouse teemed with reporters. Christine and Janelle walked out hand in hand, their faces tired but triumphant. Robyn followed, quietly protecting her children from the cameras. Meri finally emerged. The crowd cheered. Microphones were pushed forward, voices calling out questions. But Meri held up only one hand for silence. She spoke just one sentence. For 30 years he wrote the story. Today, I ended it. And then she turned and left, leaving the wreckage behind. That evening, headlines ran in all outlets. Kody Brown exposed in court. Meri's revenge, the recordings that destroyed a family. Sister wives united against patriarch. Clips of Kody's breakdown went viral, edited together with Meri's stunning final words. Fans analyzed each shot, each expression, each tear. But behind the commotion, in the silence of her own home, Meri at last permitted herself a smile. She had not only outlived Kody, she had defeated him, and everyone knew it.